A lot of college football conversations that we'll get to, including a report over the weekend that the Big Ten Conference is floating it's just coffee table talk at this point, but the idea of a 28-game postseason tournament, which we'll get to that. That'll be later in the week. But I don't know, you can decide if that's good, bad, or ugly for you, but the Big Ten apparently floating the idea of a 28-team championship tournament at the end of each regular season. We'll get to it. But obviously, I know you, as a Michigan fan, would rather not talk about the report that dropped on Friday, but I think we have to here on Game Time. Sure. But Friday, as our show wrapped up, as anticipated, the NCAA put out its long-awaited investigation and findings on the Michigan sign stealing scandal. And they didn't drop the hammer, but they should have. They admitted as much. They had this is after the long investigation of Connor Stallions and the investigation into Michigan. They won the national championship back in 2024. Now, Jim Harbaugh, after the Chargers lost to the Rams in a preseason game on Saturday, refused to comment. Of course, the NCAA came out. They fined Michigan and the university $20 million, $10 million a season. They suspended Sharon Moore for a third game.
That'll be in 2026.
2026, due to the sign-stealing scandal. Harbaugh remained mum, which I think is disappointing because after the game he said it was his first interaction with the media since the ruling came out on Friday. Like I said to you last year, not engaging. But in the report released Friday, investigators for the NCAA sharply criticized Harbaugh's stewardship over the winningest program in college football, saying the investigation uncovered overwhelming evidence of a cover-up by the Michigan staff. Harbaugh has always claimed that he didn't know about the sign stealing and scouting operation run by Connor Stallions, which the investigation makes clear is a lie. I mean, obviously is a lie. Jim Harbaugh knew about it and didn't do anything to stop it. By the NCAA's own admission in the report, Michigan only avoided a multi-year postseason ban because the NCAA decided it wasn't fair to punish Wolverines' current student athletes and penalize them for the misdeeds during Harbaugh's tenure. So, again, I mean, it said on page 51 of the report, the first part of a paragraph, that the Connor Stallion sign-stealing report, a postseason ban is required in this case. But they didn't come to a postseason ban because they would have gotten sued. They probably would have lost. And as they said, we don't want to punish the current for the past. But what this does do for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, and you're a Michigan fan, Noah, so I want your thoughts, it certainly leaves a stain. They certainly cheated, knew about it, covered it up. Whether it helped or not doesn't matter. You don't, as it said in the report and from the chief hearing officer, you don't put together a network of individuals called the KGB that records dirty film where the costs are in the tens of thousands of dollars unless you intend to gain a substantial competitive advantage. You don't invest in that if you don't think it's going to help you. And then they covered it up, which the cover-up is typically worse than the crime. So they said we should have banned them, but we didn't, which you can be mad about if you're not a Michigan fan. And if you're a Michigan fan, you just have to own it and know that it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, but they didn't take away the national championship. They didn't vacate any wins. I mean, I think Jim Harbaugh obviously had an idea of what was going on. To what extent, you don't know, but he definitely had some idea of it.
NCAA from the report, Harbaugh ran a program that was largely dismissive of rules and compliance. Right. There was little, if any, emphasis on following the rules. This is from the report.
Right. The issue that I think what they can't really do anything about, right, the NCAA, is they took action in the middle of the 2023 season when Jim Harbaugh was
because the Big Ten coaches were demanding it.
Right. When the Big Ten coaches were demanding it, exactly. So Big Ten took action. They suspended him in the middle of the year as he was heading to Happy Valley, where then they go and beat Penn State, they beat Maryland, then they beat Ohio State. If that didn't happen and that action wasn't taken, maybe it'd be different that offseason, right? Where the ban could have been, something different after they won the national title. But those things happened, and maybe it was a little bit too fast for someone who wants to see something else happen to Michigan where that gets vacated. But I think they almost jumped a little too fast on it. I don't know what else you do, although coaches wanted it, and they won those games without him. They went and won the national championship after.
Well, let me just say, because I think for the record, this needs to be known, and because a lot of you are not going to spend time reading the report, but Because Jim Harbaugh denied this. Jim Harbaugh denied he knew anything about it. Jim Harbaugh said this was a rogue person who was running this thing that we didn't know about. That's a lie. I mean, that's clearly a lie.
Sure.
Sharon Moore, who is the current head coach, when the Michigan scandal broke, they have uncovered in this investigation that Connor Stalions tried to destroy immediately the KGB evidence. They called this thing the KGB. So it was a covert operation run by Connor Stalions. Sharon Moore, one of the reasons he's now suspended for 3 games, he deleted texts with Stalions that claimed it was for storage. He deleted any 60 things of text messages, which clearly tied he and the offense to the Connor Stalions sign stealing. And Harbaugh, it says, didn't just cooperate so much for the high, and Harbaugh refused to cooperate at all with the investigation, and now still claims he's taking the high ground and didn't know anything about it. So, and again, he hails himself as a Michigan man and honorable and all this stuff, but they cheated. And again, doesn't matter if it didn't help them, which again, they did. They went against the rules knowing what the rules were. They invested tens of thousands of dollars into this system to steal signs and illegally steal signs and then use them. Whether it helped them win those last 3 games does not matter to the idea that they did it. And at that point, it's a tainted conversation, without a doubt. There's no other.
From your perspective, what would you have wanted to see?
Look, I'm not mad that they didn't punish.
Postseason ban?
Well,
is that fair to the kids and the university and the students?
No, you're not listening to what I'm saying.
No, I am listening.
I mean, you just have to own it. And Michigan's fans still want to deny it and act like it was dismissive and it wasn't a big deal. Right?
Sure.
But it was.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, not to point fingers elsewhere, but they are the ones who got caught. They definitely did it.
No one else was doing this.
How do you know that? You can't prove that.
Well, do you have any evidence of anybody else doing that?
That's fair. Fine. But why did they? I think
that's like your kid saying everyone was doing it.
Yeah, I do think the NCAA needs to look at themselves in the mirror to an extent. In 94, there's in-helmet communication is when it began with the NFL. I mean, why are we in a medieval time frame where we're still doing sign stealing? We heard Steve Sarkisian talk about it himself when this all was going down that season of, I wish half the time of my week wasn't switching up signs because other teams do that. Michigan got caught. I'm not saying that, that they didn't. I'm not saying that Jim Harbaugh didn't know about what was going on with Connor Stalions, for sure, but they took action in the middle of that season, and then they ended up winning the championship. So, I mean, hey, it is what it is. And NCAA only could do so much about it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I'm
not shocked they didn't take away or vacate the wins, though.
No, I'm not saying they should, but it has to be an asterisk on the chain, just like the Astros. I'm an Astros fan.
Right.
You
get it.
I don't. The trash can. Everyone was trying to steal signs and use digital technology to steal baseball signals, and we've been stealing signs forever in baseball. But no one took it to the levels of what the Astros did, and I think
Michigan.
the Astros.
No, it's fair.
And so it's. If there's forever, because Jim Harbaugh tries to act like, I think a lot of Michigan fans try to act like, well, there is no stain here. There is no taint to it. Of course there is. I mean, come on. The investigation revealed overwhelming evidence that there should have been a postseason ban. And obviously postseason bans now are much more severe than in any time, because you get a postseason ban now, you qualify for the 12-team playoff, you don't go. That's a lot of money. That's very lucrative to your conference and your program. So I understand why they took the stance, but it should not be forgotten, because, again, this thing's going to come and go and it's going to move on. For the record of time, people need to know absolutely Jim Harbaugh knew about it. Absolutely. Did he orchestrate it? I don't know that they proved that, but certainly he didn't do anything to stop it.
Sure.
And they're getting a slap on the wrist, essentially, for all of it. And I would say this, if for Michigan fans who don't think it's a big deal, because I keep hearing that, well, then why did all of the Big Ten coaches they understood that this was a pretty big deal, that this was happening, that we were getting to halftime of games and they had all of our signals. And I mean, it also coincided when Jim Harbaugh went from an average coach at Michigan to a great coach at Michigan. When Connor Stalions began doing this KGB operation, that also shouldn't be lost on history. That his record against Big Ten teams and in big games and against teams in his own conference completely switched when Connor Stalions began to steal signs.
Except after the fact when they won, right? Just those.
But they already had all the signs, and they already had built the program. But again, you can't anything that happened
that season. I know what you're saying. 2022 season for sure. I mean, yeah,
and 3, and anything that happened beyond that,
right?
Fine, but it also accounts. Now, yes, you're not taking the championship. I'm not saying that, but the actions still count.
Sure.
and cannot. This is the winningest program in college football history. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh still holds himself as a holier than thou at some level Michigan man who would never do that. That's wrong. That's wrong. Right, wrong.
I mean, it wasn't right.
Okay, and but you're of the ilk. It's not a big deal.
I think it's a big deal. I think it's been blown into a bigger deal than it needs to be. I have always said this. I don't understand why. Again, it's been over 30 years and we couldn't get in-helmet communication.
That was a fair point before it began.
Right.
At the same time,
that's the thing. Was he wrong? Sure. He was in the wrong. Did they do something about it in that season? They did.
All I will say, fact is, the investigation, in its own words, said this was completely worthy of a multi-season postseason ban. And you don't do and go to the lengths they did because if it wasn't a big deal, as Michigan fans still want to pretend, then why did they cover it up? Why did they go to the lengths that they did to keep it under wraps?
Because it was cheating. Right.
Correct.
Right. No, I'm not here saying it wasn't a big deal. That's not what I'm trying to get to. I just
let's hear Paul Feinbaum, who you hear on this radio station every afternoon between 2 and 3.
But it's just what bugs me here, John, is the hypocrisy of the Michigan fan base. I mean, they are easily among the most despicable group of overzealot fans I've ever dealt with. And the fact that they tried to act like they have a legitimate national championship, they don't. It won't. The banners won't come down. The trophies will remain. But everybody knows they cheated like bandits. Everybody knows that this thing stinks to high heaven. Everybody knows Jim Harbaugh was a total fraud in everything he said.
Wow. All right, Paul Feinbaum. We'll take your thoughts. 512-834-1027. There is the Michigan story, because this will be the last time we talk about it on the program, because we got college football to talk about, including the Longhorns in their final full-go scrimmage on Saturday. We'll hear Sark, his thoughts, good, bad, and ugly on Game Time.